Ready?
Go.
All right.
All right. Good afternoon. I am Desiree Whalen with the Whalen team, and I'm very excited to introduce Erin Keller with Turnkey Lifestyle. What we're going to be talking about today is she works in all aspects of organization, and she and her team can prep your home from, getting it ready to sell to organizing it and decluttering it and styling it to the finish point where she packs it up with her team and helps work with the mover to get it across country, across town, wherever that may be. So today's topic, we are going to talk about exploring downsizing. So Erin, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it. So, I'm Erin Keller. I am the owner of Turnkey Lifestyle. Turnkey Lifestyle is we're a full service move management and professional organizing company. I launched my business, in 2012. So been in business for quite some time. My roots are in professional organizing. And over the years, we were working more and more with people who were moving. They were about to move and they were trying to get ready for that. They had just moved and still had a garage full of unpacked boxes with no home and no idea about what was in those boxes. So we just really leaned into the move management space and aligned ourselves with our National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers back in, I think, 2020. And in 2012, I aligned myself with our National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. So I actually hold my certification in the move management industry, which is what the SMMC is after my name. And my background, I'm a military kid. So I just moved around a lot. And our lives were always lean for a good reason, because at any time we had to pick up and get on the road and go to a new home in a new state or a new country. So I'm very familiar with moving and organizing and what that looks like. I've actually had 18 personal moves myself within 5 states and 2 different countries. So moving can feel overwhelming. It can feel daunting and stressful. It's one of the top 5 life stressors for a very good reason. Everything is disrupted and tumultuous sometimes, and you have moving targets and timelines. And so our job as a move manager is to take all of the stress off your plate and handle all of the changes and adjustments that might be thrown your way over the course of a move. So I'll say here in Southeastern North Carolina, the majority of our clients are downsizing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I hope at the end of our time together, you'll have some good takeaways for tips and strategies to prepare you for a move. I'll say, even if you aren't downsizing, to do some editing prior to a move is such a great idea, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a cost associated with your move. Whether it's weight or time, you're going to be paying a price for everything that you're moving. So there's no point in paying to move something that you no longer need. So we try to be really strategic with our time together and make your move as lean, as efficient as possible. So I like to start with a fun fact that might not feel so fun. And usually when I have an audience of people in person, we do like a little ping pong thing. So since this is virtual, we'll keep it a little bit simpler. But the average home would contain about how many items, would y'all say? Desiree and Lee, do y'all have any thoughts on that?
Items, like
Hmm.
specific individual little items.
Yes.
Oh, thousands. Well, at least with me.
Right. Lee, do you have
I
any?
would agree. I would agree. It's got to be, I would think, 1,000. Well, in the attic and garage, I mean, thousands, I would think.
Yeah, yeah. Thousands is right. And people tend to underestimate how much our average home holds in our country. 300,000, y'all. That's a lot.
That is a lot. And you just don't think about it until you open up those drawers and you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Right, right. Well, and that number can feel very overwhelming too when you think about, okay, those 300,000 items, all of those are going to require a decision, right? And that means it's going to take time. And so even if half of your house is still coming with you, that's 150,000 items. Now that does take into account like your silverware drawer, the things in your office desk, but still all of those items are worth a review and worth an edit. And so the more time you can give yourself to review your items before your move, the easier it's going to make your move feel and the less stressful it's going to be for you. So it's really not surprising that a lot of us have too much than we really need. And we've been in a lot of homes over the years. And so very common that most of us have more than one junk drawer. So
Well, I remember when we moved and I thought, oh, I have plenty of time, but we were very at the very end and I'm opening up drawers and I just ended up taking those drawers and getting a plastic bag and just putting it in there and wrapping it up and just shoving it away. And I thought, well, I'll just worry about it later because I still had to clean.
right, right. And that's what happens is when we run out of time, we get rushed and then we just have to get it done. And so what happens is the more rushed we are on the front end of the move, the more kind of work we're putting ahead of us once we get into our new home when we're already tired because now all of this has been behind us. And so we're just pooped out. But it happens all the time. We see that a lot. So that's why time is your best friend over the course of a move and having plenty of it. You want to have lots of those best friends.
So, will you explain maybe where to start then? Like, would you go? So it looks like maybe junk drawers, like, or going in through drawers first and then your closets, or what order do you think for them to start would be best?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will actually touch on that in one of my slides coming up.
Perfect.
So I think the easiest starting point that's going to be the most tangible and the most attainable is to start with something that doesn't have any emotional value to it and that's not a big space. So a lot of times a coat closet is a really good starting point because typically coat closets are only so big and they only hold so many different types of items. And so you can tend to work within that space pretty efficiently because you're not going to be thinking about a lot of memories typically like you would if you were going through a file, in your office, or if you were going through a photo album, or even if you were going through a different storage closet that might hold some family mementos and memories. So a coat closet's good, a junk drawer, we like to call it a catch-all drawer, but one of those drawers in your house that things just kind of end up in because there's not really another home that can contain all of those things. That's a really good example also. One of the really great things you can do if you're stuck as well, I'm getting like a little ahead of myself, but if you take the contents you're reviewing out of the traditional room that they live in, you kind of detach yourself from that space and things look a little bit differently. And so then the decision-making process can happen a little bit easier.
That's a great idea.
And a good example of that is taking that junk drawer that typically lives in the kitchen and going to the dining room and processing those contents, or going to the living room on a big ottoman or coffee table and processing those items, because you just have a different mindset when you're not in that same space.
Good idea.
So we hear a lot of pain points. The overwhelming is for sure one of those. not knowing where to start. That's a really common one, especially when you go back to that number of 300,000, that feels very overwhelming. And a lot of our older clients who have adult children and grandchildren, or even younger children that are, off in college, they're realizing that their family members don't want or need their items anymore. And a lot of times, we hold on to things for that purpose, thinking, oh, I can't wait to pass this along to my son or my daughter, or I know my younger sister is going to love this one day because it meant so much to our grandmother that she had this. And then over time, we just realized that those kind of beliefs that we're holding within ourselves might not be congruent with the person who would be the likely recipient of those pieces.
Well, we just recently had that happen and we ended up just calling a junk company and we double checked it. Actually, we triple checked. Are you sure you want all this to go? They junked everything in that house. They took a little bit of what they wanted. There were pictures. I mean, everything was thrown away. Everything. It was really sad, but it's like all that family history was just gone.
I know. And unfortunately, that's becoming more and more common. We've seen that over the last 12 years, where a lot of things also are digitized. So traditional mementos might not have the same meaning because everybody already either has a copy, or they have, an e-frame, or they have it all downloaded already, or they just might not know who that person is in the photo, for example. And so then that photo doesn't really mean anything to them. So it's so easy to kind of get stuck on the memory is special to the person who has that item because that triggers a thought within themselves that might not have been shared with someone else in the kind of family or friend even network. So but it's hard, and you feel like you want to have that kind of item go into another place where it'll still be equally appreciated and enjoyed, and that might not always be the case. Yeah. So, but the move is really the best time to assess everything in your home. From a professional organizing standpoint, it's also my favorite time to get organized because everything that we're having in our home, when you go to a new home and a new layout, you have a new system in place, a new setup, a new configuration. And so it's a lot easier to go and create a new system of organization and an entirely new footprint because you're not going back to those old habits and patterns of where you had something in a cabinet or drawer or even hanging in a closet. So it's just, this is one of the reasons why I like moves. Maybe I'm just in the minority here, but I really like a move for a lot of reasons. So
It's cleansing.
it is very cleansing. It's a literal fresh start. It
I
really,
like it because you have a beginning and a middle and a definite end. And that's
yes,
nice, especially in
yes,
today's world, doesn't.
yes. It's so true. You have a lot of firm time frames over the course of a move. So one of the things that we try to do a lot is set expectations early. So on this slide, there's a list of items that we come across on a daily basis with all of our folks that we're moving. So what item on that list would y'all think would hold like the most value? So we've got Hummels,
Yeah,
Beanie Babies,
I would think that the silver plate would hold it, but I'm wondering if it's the Beanie Babies, but who knows?
right?
I'm thinking, is it the China?
The China. Well, it depends, right? So those are good guesses. And so different items have different value points to them. What's really common is that we tend to put an emotional value over a financial value on some of our items. And so when you put an emotional value on something, um, it doesn't even matter what it actually costs because we're so emotionally invested in that item. Some collections will hold a lot of value. It's very dependent upon what that collection is. And some china could hold some value. It's also very dependent on what that collection is, who that maker is. More of your higher end pieces like Heron, Limoges, Tiffany, from a China standpoint, they're going to always maintain and hold their value. And sterling versus silver plate, sterling silver will always hold its value. But everything on this list right now has essentially no value.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Which is so hard because these are some of the most common collections that we come across. The brown furniture, that's also specifically more for our region of the country in southeastern North Carolina, because we have a more laid back, casual aesthetic here because we're on the coast, we're in the South. People like to have lighter woods, more transitional pieces. Antiques, depending on where you are, will hold different value points across the country. Here in our area, it depends on the style, it depends on the wood, it depends on the piece for what that value range is going to be. But primarily, any traditional kind of brown furniture or antique reproductions just don't have a lot of value here unless it's a period piece, which you have to do some research and kind of know what you're looking at to understand what that value point could be. But the other thing too is that so much of this kind of boomer generation, they're all moving, they're all downsizing, they're all going to smaller footprints, and they all have the same kind of items typically. And so what that means is the market is just really oversaturated, and it just goes back to traditional supply demand ideology where when you have everything on the market all at the same time, there's just not a need for it. Nobody's wanting it.
I can see that. I have like I've seen some DIYers take those large china cabinets and cut them in half and then make bureaus and things out of them instead and updating them and painting them. That's not, I don't do that. That's not something that I would want to do. I would buy that, but I've seen a lot of that happening now, and they're buying them for $50 and then reselling them for 500.
Right, right. And that's exactly it. So there are a lot of amazing companies. There's actually a company in North Carolina that does a lot of online redesigning where they'll get those kind of more reproduction type pieces, lacquer them, change out the pulls, put different feet on, and they put a lot of time and energy and effort into that, but it becomes a whole different piece. But they're not going to pay market value for that piece of furniture because they've got to take it, invest in it, and then flip it.
Yeah.
So, but it's one of those things that we have to really let go of what we remember paying for an item and what we think it's worth versus what it's worth today. And that's the biggest mind shift that we run into with all of our clients, is because we know how much we worked hard for that piece that we bought. We know how much we paid for it. We know how many memories we have tied to that piece. But we also have to remember that our items in our home are typically not purchased for investment. They're purchased for use. And if you do a price per use kind of like cost analysis on that, like I know how much I paid for my sectional and I know how much, I've loved it and used it. But 10 years later, what would that sofa be able to get sold for? And it's going to be vastly a different price.
Yeah.
So,
I know like with my mom, she knows that we don't want a lot of like the old china. It's just not our style. We just don't use it because you can't put it in the dishwasher. So
right.
she's just using it now. She's using it for everyday use. So she feels fancy and it makes her feel good that she's getting use out of it because she's not entertaining anymore.
That's exactly it. We have a lot of folks that we move that have done the same thing. They've had these wonderful, beautiful China crystal collections, sterling, and they've just said, you know what? Why am I going to move this again and not use it? I'm going to get rid of my everyday stuff because now you're also not using it on a 12-person dinner. You might be having a smaller setting where it is manageable to hand wash, hand dry, and polish, and then use it and feel fancy to your point. So why not? If you have it and you love it, then use it. And that's a really good rule of thumb across the board anyway. If you have nice things and you're afraid to use them, then you probably shouldn't use them. But just lean into it and know that you might risk breaking a, beautiful piece of stemware, but you had a great glass of wine in it.
That's great. Yeah.
So when we're moving our folks that are downsizing, and even those folks that are upsizing or going to a similar kind of floor plan size from a square footage standpoint, anytime you are reviewing what you're having, it can be called downsizing or right sizing, but editing or sorting, they're different words that we kind of put into this whole like review process. But just take your time. Back to that 300,000 item slide, there's a lot in our house that has to get processed, that decisions have to be made on. And so if you can take your time, go slow, don't feel rushed, take plenty of breaks. It might not be physically fatiguing, but you're making decisions and it's mentally fatiguing. And it's easy just to kind of glaze over. So just walk away for 10 minutes, go outside, take a little break, and then come back. And then really take your time again to go through. It's easier to process coffee mugs in a cabinet than it is to go process files in a file drawer. So you just have to really be intentional about what you're processing and then set yourself up for success to do it that way. The four general categories that we work within when we're editing our items are going to be the items you're going to keep, the items you're no longer keeping, you're going to donate those, or you're going to have another kind of category to disperse those. Maybe they're going to go to a family member, maybe they're going to go to a friend. Then you have items that you're going to sell. There's typically not going to be a whole lot in your home that's going to be sell worthy, but just know what your options are. And if that's a motivator for you, if you're into doing a lot of online or selling things yourself, you just have to think about, what's your return for the time invested on that, and then how much you're going to get at the end of the day. But there are a lot of wonderful consignment options in your local area. There are a lot of wonderful online options. And then you have to also acknowledge what you're going to discard, what you no longer need to keep in every kind of room in your house and in every category. And so some good questions to think about as you're making your move to your new home. If you're downsizing, or let's say that you are going into a home and you have kids that are off in college and you are still going to be having them come home, but they're not living there as much. How much storage space do you need? How much cooking are you going to be doing? How much entertaining are you going to be doing? Is your lifestyle going to be really different, or is it going to be kind of the same? And then thinking about, okay, where are these items going to live at our new home? So if we're going to take one of these bedrooms and turn it into an office or turn it into a workout room, then we're going to probably lose space here. Or if you have a multifunctional room that's a shared room for, an office or a guest room, then you have to be intentional about giving your guests enough space when they're coming to visit you. And it's always motivational to do it when you have company, to review your items, especially clothing. It's nice to have another opinion with a really good friend to say, you know what, I don't love that shirt anymore. What do you think? And your friend can validate you or say, you know what, I would love that shirt. So let me take it.
You need that one emotional kid in your family who just doesn't really care and just help really be honest with you.
Right, right.
A
Exactly.
neutral party. What do you
Yeah.
think about those companies, or is that something, what do you think about doing like an estate sale while you're living, having people go through your home and just kind of walking through it and buying things? Or do you think There are some safety concerns with doing that before you move, as well as you could not, because you're not going to want to sell everything. I just, that just kind of popped into my head, or just wait until and have it more streamlined, like what, just doing it more streamlined.
Right. So estate sales, it's very dependent on what you have and how much you have, whether it's going to be um beneficial for not only you but for the auctioneer who's going to be putting that estate sale on, or the estate sale company. I would say from a safety standpoint, I would err on the side of caution to have people come in your home while you're still living there, because then they just basically, even if you have doors closed for like bedrooms and things like that, just having people in your home, you have no idea who's coming in, what their intentions are. And if you're not selling everything in the house, and someone could say, oh gosh, I saw their, just to say, their gun cabinet, for example, they must have some nice firearms here that maybe I can come back another time, or you just never know. And then just, I think it makes sense to do that part of the process once you've already moved out. So you're no longer in the home, and then everything in the home that's left is for sale. Some key things to keep in mind: not every neighborhood will allow an on-site estate sale or tag sale. You have to check with your HOA
Okay.
regulations.
Mhm.
The other issue can be a roadblock for estate sales is parking. So even if you don't have an HOA that's really stringent and strict about what they're going to allow, parking can be a deal breaker too. Because if you're in a neighborhood that has tight streets or limited access, your neighbors are not going to love that. And then it's going to be really hard for people to come in. It's going to be hard for the auction company or estate company to be able to haul out whatever's left over. So you have to do a lot of research just to kind of figure out if that's the best fit for you. If you do like that estate sale model, we work with several different estate companies in our area. And one of the options they can do is to have an off-site sale where they would just come in, process everything in your house and take it out and then sell it in their warehouse. So that's one of the ways you can really get around any kind of like limitations for having it on site.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's more efficient with everybody's time.
Mhm.
And then it also takes like the safety issue out. And some people are very particular about not wanting people in their family home,
Mhm.
especially if it's a parent moving to like a life care community, and it's already an emotional move on top of all of that. But once you're out, whatever's left, then those decisions can be made.
Good points.
So I love leaning into the organizing principles for our downsizing or for our move prep work that we're going to do. And I don't want to get too like detail oriented on these, but I'll go into each of these categories briefly just so there's a good idea about how to start. Because I know you asked about that earlier, Desiree. And then some of the strategies you can do in each one of those steps. One of the most popular organizing principles is called the space method. And that's where you're going to sort your items first, and then you're going to purge what you have, and then everything's going to get assigned a home. And even if you're not moving for a while, if you take your time and do this kind of move prep method before you move, you're still going to be putting things back into their home, even if it's a temporary home before you move. And then you're going to contain everything. And that doesn't necessarily mean, putting it in an organizing container. It's the space it's going to live in. And then you're going to equalize it. So that's just maintaining all of the hard work that you've done throughout that process. So the first step is sorting. This is going to be your review of items that you have in your home. So it's very common for a lot of us to have similar items in lots of different spaces in our homes. So scissors might be a good example where we might have scissors in our office. We might have scissors in a craft space if we have like a craft space or a craft closet. Scissors in the kitchen. We might have scissors out in the garage for organizing, like gardening things or outdoor things. We have to cut bags open and things like that. We could have scissors in a bonus room for whatever reason. But if you can figure out where all of your like items are and gather them together in one space, and then you can see how many of the same items that you have. So it's a really good way to wrap your head around. I did not know that I had 12 pairs of scissors. So maybe we only need 6 pairs of scissors for whatever reason. And so that way you just really have a good understanding about what you have and then where it needs to go back. And it's just going to take time, right? So if you just take your time, review your items, you can even set a timer where if you're working in the kitchen, for example, just set a timer for 30 minutes and just review those kind of junk drawer or catch-all drawer categories, and then break out all the items you have in that drawer and think about what other items that we have in this drawer could be in other spaces. I think what makes the most sense is in your smaller spaces like drawers and cabinets, you group them all by type. And so what that means is you get all of your prep tools together, you get all of your cooking utensils together, you get all of your coffee mugs together, all of your skillets together. And then you can really see, okay, I have 6 skillets. 2 of them are the same size. I have 2 8-inch skillets, and maybe you're only really using one, or maybe you have a specialty piece of cookware that you just really haven't used in a long time. And that's going to give you an idea about how many of these like items you have in that space. And then in our bigger areas like garages and attics, where we tend to have a lot of different items that are different, differently used, if you can group those by category. So for example, all of your holiday decor, maybe you go by season. If you have Christmas or Halloween, or if you have Easter, get all of those items together. Your gardening, how many gardening tools do you have? How much sports equipment do you have? So getting all of those items together by that general category will give you an idea about how much you have and then how much you're actually using those items. The other thing too that we tend to forget is that we have such a storage unit epidemic in this country.
Yeah.
And so as you're thinking about the items in your home, and let's say you're one of those storage unit renters, think about, do I have items in my storage unit that might be similar to what I'm looking at right now in my kind of gathering, my grouping phase? And
Mhm.
so not that you have to go to your storage unit and bring them back in, but just keep in mind, oh, I forgot that I had this container over there of holiday stuff. I should probably look at that too as I'm going through this process.
Hmm.
So after we have everything together, this is going to be your editing component where you're just going to let it go. So this is where we get hung up sometimes, especially when we have those emotionally charged items and mementos, or those pieces that we put a really high emotional value on. That's why starting in the junk drawer, the coat closet is a good place to start, so we're not getting hung up on those emotional decisions. And then just think about, what is your goal? So your goal is to live maybe a more streamlined life where you can find things a little bit easier. You're a bit more organized. If you're wearing, if you have 10 coats in your coat closet that are just yours and you're really only wearing half, then you can get rid of those extra 5, give yourself and that space some more breathing room. And then it's also going to help make your decisions on what you're looking for go a little bit faster, because you've just reduced what you're looking for by half. So the leaner you can be in your life, the more time it's going to give you.
This is where
Especially,
your neutral friend comes in.
yes, yes. When you have someone that can give you some nice guideposts if you get stuck.
Yes. Even your realtor like me, I don't have any emotion over it at all. I'll give you my opinion.
Right, right. And sometimes we just need permission, right? Sometimes we just need permission to let it go. We're working with someone right now who has a lot of mementos and she's about to make a move out of town. And she said, I have all these things in my attic. I don't really know the extent of what's in a lot of these memory boxes. Anything that you see that's a letter, I want you to tell me I can get rid of it. And so we just spent some time with her, giving her permission to let go of all of these letters from her childhood to her adolescence to her youth, like notes from friends and old boyfriends and,
Yeah.
letters from relatives. Because she said, I'm not remembering what's here, I'm not enjoying them. And then they kind of don't have as much meaning anymore if they just live in a box you never see.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly right. And after a while, the pen, I would think after a while, a lot of it would get faded and I don't know. Sometimes there's personal information in those too that you may not want to see, have other people see.
Right, right. Well, and that's definitely where, knowing what those distributions are. So if you do have sensitive documents or things you don't want to have anyone look at, then think about shredding those. So that's one of those things you have to consider too, is not every, let's say you're going to go donate most of what you have in one of your rooms, like your closet, you have a bunch of clothes that just you'd rather just donate than sell. So just know who takes what. Not every organization takes the same things. So not every place is going to take toys or games, or they're not going to take stuffed animals. They're not going to take workout equipment. They're not going to take builder related items like light fixtures or something like that. So just be clear about who will take what before you load up your car and go make a drop at your local organization when they say, listen, we can't take half of this because we don't ever take it. Or you've driven over there and they tell you we're full. We don't have any room on the floor to process anything. You'll have to come back next week. So just do a little bit of research before you get this wonderful momentum and take your things, then realize you can't do anything with it for a week, or now maybe you have to go to a different organization to see if they'll accept those items. And the same thing with consignment. A lot of consignment stores, I know in our area, you can email them photographs of pieces that you'd like to sell before you box everything up, drive it in your car, take it over there, and they say we can only take two things and not the rest. So just try to find a way to be efficient with your time by knowing what your options are for where those pieces can go and the best home that they can live a second life in.
And beds and TVs are ones that no one takes, right?
Well, so with televisions, you can do electronic recycling. Best Buy nationwide will take all electronics. So printers, computers, television, any kind of electronic device, Best Buy will take. Just make sure you clear your data before you take it. Because even though they, will, I think they'll commit to being, data sensitive. I think it's always prudent to do your due diligence and clear any sensitive data that you might want. Beds and mattresses, those are so hard because there's really not one or resale market for those. We have a lot of folks that have spent a lot of money on very high-end beds, whether it's an adjustable bed, a sleep number bed, something like that. But they're health code regulations. And so a lot of times a mattress just can't even get donated because the health department will come in and fine organizations sometimes if they have accepted a mattress that's has any kind of flaw in it. Um, and the other reality too is that there's so many darn mattress stores now. We're in a college town here in Wilmington, So maybe we have more mattress stores in the average town in our country. Because college kids need a mattress when they come here and they move out of the dorms, or they move here as, you know, a commuter student. But you can get a very inexpensive mattress, just like you can get a very inexpensive television now. And so reselling a TV or trying to donate a mattress, there's just not a secondary market for that. So it's hard. We try everything we can to find a great solution for a second home, but that doesn't always happen. So we have to kind of go to a discard option sometimes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So after we've done the work of sorting through our items and, you know, purging what we have, then this is what we have left, right? So this is where we're going to put everything back into our space. And even if we're moving, this can be a temporary space. So think about if you're going to a smaller bathroom, for example, or a smaller kitchen, just think about where those items can live in your new home. We always love the keep it where you use it mantra, just because it makes your time more efficient in the space where you're using those items. We love a kitchen triangle. That just talks about, it's the traditional stove, refrigerator, sink model in homes. It's a little bit of a not outdated model, but homes are so different now than they were 40 years ago. You have double islands, you have butler pantries, you have really different needs in kitchens today than you did a generation or two ago. But just think about your foot pattern and your foot traffic in your bathroom and kitchen spaces, your office. How far is the printer away from you, where your office supply is going to live, where you can get to them easily. And we love having things not be out on surface areas, because the more you have out, the more things kind of get lost, and the easier it is when you go to put your mail down and your keys when you come in to go back out the next time. Where'd you put your keys?
Yes, that seems to be something that happens to me quite often.
Yes, yes. Well, we lose 9 items per day on average. That's crazy. So that's why we love assigning a home, because if your keys go in the same dish every time on the same corner of whatever surface area, then you know when you come and go, they're going to live in that home. And then you can take that dish to your new home and put it in a similar kind of foot traffic pattern and know that your keys will be there. Maybe they're on a hook by a door. So whatever makes sense for your lifestyle, it's very customizable. And then containing what's left. We've, over the years, with people who are organizing, who aren't even moving, people love having organizing containers because it's fun, they're pretty, it's a kind of fun new thing to bring in. But we've worked with so many folks over the years that they have a container problem.
I wouldn't have thought about that.
Yes, yes. They get hung up on a certain container, and then we have too many, and then their needs have changed. And so now the container is not the right size. It doesn't fit in the space correctly. So it's definitely not going to be your starting point. We love open baskets for things like, you know, in the pantry that are bagged, like chips and crackers and things like that. And we love sealed containers for rice and grains and beans and things like that. Our humid environment here in coastal North Carolina has food stale at a very rapid rate and produce ripen at a very quick rate. So the
Yeah.
more that you can containerize those items, whether you're moving or not, it's going to have your items last a little bit longer and be more shelf stable. And then knowing too, like you mentioned a little bit ago, Desiree, about some of those papers and the ink fading and things like that, knowing what your solutions are for long-term storage. We see a lot of people who like to contain items in cardboard boxes, which is really not a great idea. Cardboard boxes are best for short-term solutions like moving temporary storage, maybe in a storage unit for a few months at most. But cardboard is an attractant for insects and pests, as well as it damages from the cellulose in the cardboard. It really damages contents that are sensitive to that. So archival based items for paperwork, photographs, textiles that are sentimental, those do best in a very stable environment where you have acid-free paper. And then once you've done your hard work, you're just going to maintain it. You're going to maintain it until your move comes up, knowing that you've worked hard, you've edited everything in your home, and you have a pretty good idea about where it's going to go in your new home. And at the very least, you know exactly what you have because you've reviewed everything and taken the time to review it. And now when those boxes come off the truck, you know those kitchen items, everything you have is what you're going to use and need, and you're going to have an intentional space for that. So setting a deadline for your completion time will help you stay on target. And I'll talk about that quickly in the move timeline and checklist. And then a great way to kind of maintain your hard work is the 1 in, 1 out rule. If you're going to bring something new in, like a new shirt, try to find a shirt that can come back out, that you just aren't enjoying as much anymore. So it's a good way for you to stay on track where you're not backsliding and then really adding on to all the work that you've done. So some of the perks about doing this pre-move work, whether you're downsizing or not, is that there's less to pack, move, and unpack, which is going to reduce your overall moving expenses. It also gives you a clear vision of what you have, and everything will have a clear purpose in your new home. You're organized. Who doesn't love that? And then what's really special about this for us, especially for our folks that are going into more of a relaxed lifestyle community, is you are sharing these memories with your friends and family, and you're also passing along these great stories to your friends and relatives who were maybe a part of that memory with you. So it's just a great way for you to relive all the things that you have. So then it also gives you that additional permission to let go of those letters because you're remembering, oh, this is such a great time in my life, but I don't need this piece of paper to remind me anymore because now I've shared the story and I have it in my heart and I can let it go. So a checklist is going to be your best friend for your move. It's going to help you hit your deadlines, stay on target, stay organized, and be prepared. You can always add to your checklist. And I don't know, I'm a form person, I'm a list person, and I will put something on my list just to cross it off.
Yes, it does give you some sort of joy from doing that.
It's instant gratification. Instant gratification. So who doesn't love checking stuff off? And you're validating all the work that you're doing. And so what you can do is when you're moving, especially, you have all these deadlines, all these time frames. You have time frames for your house going on the market, all your action items for preparing your house to go on the market, to get listed, showings, all that. Then you've got all your clothes deadlines and time frames, and you've got your move timelines, and you have your new home timelines. So just being really clear about assigning those times with dates, and then taking that checklist and saying, okay, by this date, I have to do this action item, and then putting it on that calendar. It's just going to really help flesh everything out and give you a visual for what needs to get done, so you don't feel like everything has to happen all at the same time. That's huge when you're doing multiple things with multiple steps over the course of the move, especially when you're buying and selling on both ends. It's a lot to keep up with. So just give yourself buffers and then be realistic about your time frames. And also, we're going into hurricane season. So know that as we get further into the summer months and we get into early fall, we might need to give some buffers just in case we have a storm coming into our area that we have to pause the activity for a little bit of time. So it's easy to forget about, our weather events in life when we're moving.
Yeah, I mean, even just this week, I mean, we've been kind of in a drought, and then it's been raining every day. So
Right. And that can delay photos. It can delay, lots of other things for your home.
Yes. So
Sunny
would you
days ahead.
recommend would you recommend when people are considering deadlines and dates, um, giving, if they think something's going to take 15 minutes, I can't remember where I read this. If you think something's going to take 15 minutes, give yourself an hour instead.
Yes, I always say triple it.
Okay.
That's a good rule of thumb, especially when you're going through things that are going to be time consuming, like paperwork. That banker's box, I think, 2,500 decisions in a banker's box. So it's just going to take a lot of time. Our spaces that are going to require the most amount of time to process are going to be the kitchen because of the amount of contents in the kitchen. It's going to be our garages and our attics because, again, lots of different things from different categories in those storage spaces. And then our offices, because that's where our paperwork typically lives. So those are going to be our densest areas in the home. They're going to require a lot of time and a lot of decisions to get made. And that's why if you give yourself 3 to 6 months before you're even thinking about a move date, it's going to give you time to make those decisions and not feel pressed. So floor plans, we don't really have to go into this. What I love about a floor plan is it gives you a clear idea about where your items are going to live in your new home. Knowing how your furniture is going to get arranged before the guys are taking the furniture off the truck will save you time on move day. So you're not reconfiguring your living room 5 different ways. You've already put thought into it. You know where the sofa is going to go. You know where the chairs are going to go. And the same thing with bedrooms or shared spaces. Knowing how that furniture is going to get laid out is really going to help make the most out of your delivery day in your new home. We do a lot of floor plans with our clients who are downsizing because if they're going by half or more, our furniture is bigger. It's not going to go into the same configuration in our new home. Or if you're going from a more traditional floor plan to an open concept, they get congested very quickly in a smaller floor plan, square footage. So move management, part of what we do is we take all of these decisions and action items and we handle them on your behalf. We do the floor plan for you. We space plan where items are going to live in your kitchen, in your closet, in your bathroom, in your offices. We put together the move timelines and checklists for you. We find the mover. We coordinate all of that for you on your behalf. We do a lot of multi-point moves where we're sending things to storage units, to the new home, or getting things to family members, whether it's in town or out of state. We provide all of the packing, move day, and unpacking. So whether you're staying in town or going cross country, you can look into the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers, key in your zip code and find a move manager. If anything move related feels stressful and daunting, they can help take some things off your plate. So it's a really great resource to have so you don't feel like you're doing it on your own. And then you can also get some pre and post move support, whether you're moving or not, with organization systems, maximizing your new space, finding solutions if you're doing upgrades in your home after you've moved in. Most move managers and professional organizers too overlap in both of those industries. And so if you need someone to help you in your new home and your new location, you can go to the NASM website or to the NAPO website, which is the National Association of Professional Organizers and Productivity Consultants, and they can help you. You can do a zip code search and you can find someone to help you if you're, wherever you're moving across the country. So yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of what we do. We're aligned with both of those industries. We have insurance. We are vetted. We work with movers that we trust, that we work with. And any move manager or professional organizer is going to find a way to support you over the course of your move and really make it as seamless as possible and not one of those life five stressors.
Yes, and you're incredibly good with things like that. I remember a lamp. It was it was an antique lamp. It was incredibly expensive, emotionally expensive, and you packed it up so well, and it went from here all the way to California.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I can attest.
Thank you. Yes, yes. We move a lot of emotionally valuable items
Yes, exactly, exactly.
where there is no no value. The value is limitless.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well,
So
thank you so much, Erin. I really appreciate you taking your time doing this with us. And hopefully we can do this again soon.
that sounds great. And it was a lot of information, so you can digest as needed.